Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me all okay and see me all okay. First off, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that it is August, so you probably would rather be on holiday, and it is a Thursday. So thank you for taking the time to join this webinar. Mark and I just want to give 30 seconds or so just to allow some late joiners to join the webinar. We just wanted to reiterate. First question, thank you, Edwin. That we want this session to be interactive. We want it to give you some value. So please, any kind of questions, comments, or anything you kind of want further clarification on or discussion on, please do put them into the chat for us, or the questions for us. But obviously, we will reach out after the webinar just so you've got all of our details if you don't have already. So any kind of follow-up questions you have, probably more likely for Mark than I. Obviously, you've got us as a point of contact. So for those of you who are just joining us, again, thank you for your time today. Mark and I are just going to give it a couple of more seconds just to allow the people, late joiners and people who have problems with tech, like I normally do, ironically, to make sure that they...
Don't tempt fate. You know what happened yesterday.
No, but it's normally me, especially if I'm at home or something, who has a problem with like the webcam or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Just to allow those people like me to like I say, to join.
Yes. Well, I'm referring to the fact that yesterday I was invited to take part in the SolarWinds Virtual Swag event for us yesterday afternoon, and let's just say technical issues were hampering things quite significantly. So it was a interesting time. I was kind of thrown in at the deep end a little bit with regards to the fact that I ended up with no SolarWinds people on the session at all, and I was then left trying to work out what buttons to press that I wasn't supposed to be responsible for in all of the planning. But hopefully for those that did attend that VSWAG yesterday, it was still a useful session.
So if anybody wants to enjoy that retrospectively, I think it is available on demand now.
Not sure I put myself through that, as say that was a horrific first few minutes.
Okay then, should we begin, Mark?
Let's go for it.
Yep, so first off, just introduce myself. I am Daniel. I am the new marketing manager at Prosperon. So I thought I'd jump on the call and just kind of put a face to a name. Some people I might have spoken to over LinkedIn or over email. So this webinar has come about. So Mark recently attended a JISC event. It would have been about 2 months ago now, and delivered the Monitoring to Observability webinar. In-person events and lightning talk. I think that's what they branded it as.
It was called a lightning talk. I had a whole 10 minutes.
Like the Glastonbury stage. And from that we had a lot of kind of questions and feedback, and people wanted some more information, but obviously we were quite limited in those 10 minutes as to what we can deliver in those 10 minutes. So this here is the chance for us to deliver this again, but to deliver it in more detail, and also to kind of deliver some more things, like some more focus on the AI and things and how that impacts your organization, and how we can hopefully bring some more value to you all. So now I'm going to introduce Mark. Mark is our CEO. Mark has been working with SolarWinds for 20 years, Mark?
Quite a while. I tend not to focus on the numbers anymore. I just say it's been a while. Yeah. So obviously, as Dan says, I've been working with SolarWinds for quite a while, and have the privilege of being the CEO of Prosperon. And for obviously a lot of you know us, you've worked with us. I'm proud to say that. And so from that point of view, we have a strong background in SolarWinds. We've been an elite partner actually for 19 plus years now, and you'll see from the accolades that we get, from the resources that we put into it, we really do set ourselves out to be the SolarWinds experts. Gurus has been mentioned before, so we have a great team that go out and deliver some training and professional services, and really allow our customers to maximize the investment that they have. So as you can see, as I say on the screen, there's a number of ways that we do that, and the outcomes that we get are very strong for our customers. Now, today's webinar is really all about say the journey that our industry, and when I say about our industry, the kind of monitoring world, whether you want to call yourselves SREs, whether you want to be your monitoring engineers, or whether I'm sure there are people on the call that are, here is a SolarWinds platform, this is your baby to look after, and whether by hook or crook, you are that platform owner. And so kind of joining these kind of sessions, joining the vSwag yesterday, all about hopefully us imparting our expertise and knowledge, give you kind of guidance, thought, ideas about what you should be looking at, how you should be taking advantage of the solution. And as I say, this today is very much around the journey from monitoring to observability. We'll look at the differences between them. We'll look at the benefits that this new world is bringing. I kind of refer to it as an evolution. But it is very much one of those things that blurs very strongly into the revolutionary aspects of how this is going to affect what we deliver as a monitoring and as an observation platform to our organizations. And the kind of framework for all of this is advancements in IT. Advancements in IT for us in observability means leveraging AI, means leveraging machine learning, means processing huge amounts of data. And I'm talking about huge amounts of data and making sense of it. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail. But also what that means is, along with the complexities that the AI is bringing in terms of how it works, but the simplicity of the benefits of the front-end output. So that's very much a key takeaway in terms of where we move to observability, is the simplification of the usage of the platforms. As you're working in IT, you're all exposed to the complexities that exist. And here we've got a number of aspects around what that may look like. It may be the fact that you're migrating to cloud, to consume SaaS, to be consuming objects and function and services that maybe you're not responsible for, or that where you are responsible, the interactivity that takes place. We talk a lot with our customers that are running websites, and whether they are kind of this monolithic, here's a website, or whether it's made up of lots of microservices, whether that's container based or third party provided. We are using data from different people in different ways across different technology stacks. Our networking has evolved in the fact that we don't have these devices that sit on the network in isolation and they get configured specifically. No, we're moving to orchestration in the cloud. We're using orchestration onto the orchestrators to manage multiple vendors. So all of that inherently brings greater complexity, and our monitoring needs to be keeping up with that. One of my mantras that I've always had as I've worked in this industry is making sure that we are seen across the IT business. We need to know what projects are coming along. We need to know what changes are coming along. We need to ensure that when those changes are being planned, whether that's part of the design work, whether that's part of the procurement process, that you have insight early, because you need to make sure that when that starts getting deployed, you're monitoring the effectiveness of the deployment, the efficiency of the deployment, and then being able to provide measurements on the success of that deployment. And then as things move into the operational realm, how then that allows you to look at the status, the health, the utilization of those objects, those services, those environments. Now, we've kind of got a visual representation here. You'll see that we have elements around kind of an atypical organization with regards kind of office. You can very much add home working in there. That certainly add a significant level of...
Sorry, Mark. Would you say is this kind of typical of our kind of client base, or is this kind of an extreme example, or is this kind of an example of like a day-to-day organization that we would look after?
Yeah, the thing is that, and it kind of goes back to the previous slide, actually, Dan. Different organizations have different approaches. Some are cloud first, and pretty much everything is running in the cloud. That will also include SaaS consumption as well, by the way. And then other customers have a hybrid model. Some customers cannot move to the cloud because of data governance or preference or whatever it may be. So this is why we kind of represent this as being a common scenario, because most organizations are going to have their foot in a number of these camps.
Mm-hmm.
And again, inherently, that's going to add that complexity.
So these are the main pillars almost in
Yeah.
terms of what we would see, the characteristics. Okay.
Yeah, and the fundamentals here are understanding the services and the infrastructure that delivers those services to your users, your internal staff, the organization, the partners of that organization, the customers of that organization. All of your IT is exposed to lots of different people, roles, and functions. And when we're talking about monitoring, it's, well, how is that being delivered? Is it being delivered? Is it up? Is it down? Is it healthy? Can I learn from the utilization to be proactive? Yeah, a monitoring solution should not just be a reactive solution, i.e. something's broken, let's go and fix it. It is essentially a huge data collector to help you answer many questions, both in the moment and in terms of forecasting and planning. And really the essence there is, how do these objects provide their information? Is it a SNMP, traditional things like on network devices? Is it more commonly now an API, a kind of JSON web service type thing? And so there it's really just about understanding what those source objects are like. And this is where we really start coming into how this impacts what we're talking about from a journey from our traditional monitoring. And what I say in terms of traditional monitoring, it's we go and collect data and we have a network device and we SNMP poll it. We have a cloud provider. We use the Graph API to go and retrieve data values. Same for a SaaS platform. We may be putting agents on servers to retrieve information. And we kind of bring all of that, we store it in the database, and then we start presenting it in a way which people can interpret what's going on. And that's a key word for me, is interpretation. I need to look at a dashboard and I need to understand what a graph means. I want to be able to correlate what a spike in this chart means if I see a dip in this chart. And so from a monitoring point of view, that's been our universe for many, many years. As you can see there, the collection of these data metrics, these log values that we then use to detect known identified problems, so we can then present that for someone to look and go, okay, well, here's my root cause. And actually that was the foundation for the vSwag yesterday, is what the root cause is. When we have a monitoring solution, our ability to look at data on a screen presented in a way which that data is turned into information, so that when I look at it, I can then ingest that and interpret it to give me root cause. Yeah. If I look at a virtual server and I see that the resources have changed, and therefore the performance insight might be the fact that somebody's taken some vCPUs away, and actually they've taken too much, and now we've got a hotspot where our performance is now degraded because of a change or an impactful service loss. So then we start looking at the right-hand side of this, and we start looking into, well, what is observability? Well, observability is really taking that data and telling you what is going on. Now, we use proactive there in the sense of the data that's there. We don't need to interpret as much. We may need to reinforce, and we may need to do our own forensic review to validate what observability is telling us. But it's very much to say there about changing the ethos from does this data tell me I've got some bad things going on, to observability saying this is the data that is saying to you you've got problems. That fundamental change is huge, because the level of empowerment that gives, I don't need to be an SME. I don't need to understand how a virtual platform works, or the difference between the metrics that Azure is providing compared to AWS that indicate that I've got high user connections, and that's the reason why I've got performance degradation, is just workload, versus a config change impacting performance, versus a pathway change.
Sorry, Mark, I feel like I'm just here just bug you all my questions.
No,
with regards to this, to somebody like me who isn't kind of all that far down that journey, if I wasn't safer in Prosperon. What tangible benefits would that bring to an organization? Is that in terms of kind of better utilization of kind of their labor force, in terms of reducing that cost down? Is it more kind of efficiency, or is it kind of just predominantly focused at that kind of that tech team and giving them tools to fix things faster?
I would say all of that and much more. So as a use case example, when we talk to our clients, obviously many of them on the session today, we want to understand what's their workflow when an issue is identified. What's the workflow from there? How are we notifying the network team directly when there's a network issue, or actually do we need to create dashboards that are more focused towards a service desk, and that the alerting needs to go into the help desk platform as quickly as possible so that service desk team can respond? And when we have that understanding that there is an active service desk, then the question then is, okay, how does that work? What level of capability do they have? Because are they just a triage point? Are they just kind of making sense and then saying, okay, well, Ted or Mary need to go and have a look at this? And the benefit of observability is the empowerment that they're going to be able to have. They don't need to be technologists to a higher level. They don't need to be tier 2 service desks. They can be told in more clarity about what's going on to be able to make informed decisions about what to do next. And
so you can
clearly,
quite easily cascade this through the organization. There isn't kind of a necessity to be, all that kind of that tech skilled. The kind of the language used is kind of more understandable to, or accessible rather, to people like me, perhaps.
is a I'd say accessible is a great word for you to use there. That accessibility, not just to the service desk, which may be on the kind of lower capability rungs of IT. It's often a starting point to move into IT, as we all know. And so from that point of view, the more we're able to provide them information with, as you can see, things like actionable insights, telling them this is why you've got a network issue, because a routing change occurred. A routing change in this circumstance is the fact that we had some BGP announcements, etc. And there's the context. So that context is then able to give them capacity to make decisions. It may be able to give them responses to say, this is a common resolution. This is your workflow. This is your run book to resolve these kind of issues. And clearly, as we start moving further up the chain, that's still beneficial. Yeah, I may have the knowledge to be able to understand what that BGP neighbor change means and be able to, from the top of my head, know my network architecture to know how that's going to impact my flow of traffic. But if I've got that visually shown up, I've got the data and information that tells me the why and the how and the resolution. Again, all of that's now going to help with my resolution response. Now, other use cases that you can see here. So we are on a journey of observability. I will be very clear with that. Any vendor that's out there saying that they've got the panacea and this is a done deal and there's no real more innovation to come, there's a huge amount of innovation still to come in this area. We're already seeing it in the SolarWinds platform around the ability to reduce that alert noise. Now, we know one of the biggest areas that we work with customers on is alert management. How do we fine tune? How do we cleanse? How do we make sense? How do we enrich our alerting output? Because the less false positives there are, the less wastage. The richer the output is and the more accurate the identification of issues, and the quicker we're able to get that into a service desk platform, then the quicker we're able to get various things in place and sorted. So that is a really, really key area for me, is helping with alerting function. So reducing that alerting noise, making good quality output, giving the information to somebody, as I say, that example of a service desk, here's all the information you need to be able to understand what's going on and how. The identification. So bringing this root cause, if you think about a common scenario, we were talking yesterday about this kind of web application stack, where the network allows the remote users to access a web server. Through that, we're going through the internet, we're going through a load balancer or a firewall device onto the internal network to then access the web server. And then we've got a web server that might be a set part of a farm. I'm starting to add layers of complexity here, but that layering is all that tiering. is how does the application, literally from the disk of the database server, of the virtual server that runs on the virtual host or in the cloud, and the web server and the middleware applications and the implications to API connections, they're all very complex. So if we're collecting hundreds, if not thousands of data points on this one web application, how do we identify which one of those is the good numbers and the bad numbers? AI is there absolutely to help us with that. Again, I don't need to be a subject matter expert, an SME on a web application stack. I don't need to be the expert on the Dynamics as a CRM that we're hosting ourselves, but I can infer a lot of knowledge by the fact that AI is giving me that insight. And with all of that, clearly, it's going to help with productivity, because if I'm getting all of this ability to reduce the amount of time that I take to identify and detect, analyze, determine, make a decision on how I resolve things, then that's going to free up a lot of time for me to go and do other things for the organization. Now, I'm just going to cut across here. I just wanted to kind of show some practical examples of this very quickly, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So here, oh, that's interesting. I've timed out, always good on a live demo. So let me come into here. So I'll start on our journey here. You can see that I'm on, so this is actually the SolarWinds SaaS platform. And what I've got here is our e-commerce web application. Again, I kind of showed this yesterday, but for the benefit of others, let me just bring this up on the screen. So this is our sample demo web application, and people can replicate what they would use as an e-commerce site and add things to a shopping basket and process this. If this is my business, if this is how I make my money, that website needs to be up. It needs to be performant. If it's slow, people are going to go and use my competitors. If it doesn't work, if I click on this checkout, continue to checkout button, and I get an error, I can't pay for the goods that I want to buy. And again, that business is going to go to somewhere else, or it's going to be affecting my revenue streams. So as we look at this in more detail, let me just make sure I get that working. So here I've got my web application. I've got various data endpoints. Now I'm not here promoting the product. I'm here talking about the function of observability. But what we can see is we've got a whole lot of data metrics. I might want to analyze these, and I want to look at the performance of this page versus this page, look at how the code gets performed, the performance of the database in terms of how quickly queries are returned. I've got access to all of that. But the observability piece is kind of two things. We've got this root cause kind of function. So when we look at this, we're using AI to bring me an understanding about the data analysis. So we had a scenario, and you'll see that it's kind of something I just generated earlier on today, where we had an outage or we had some performance issues. So I clicked on the root cause analysis. That then grabs all of that data, sends it off to an AI engine within the SolarWinds platform, and it's going to bring back and give me my AI assessed information. I'm also using a degree of AI to do my health score. So there's a number of aspects around here that are going to impact my health. As we come across to our self-hosted platform, now forgive me, let me just re-log in. So when we're talking about the self-hosted platform, we also have AI in here. We have, in the first instance, anomalous-based alerting. So rather than us having a hard-defined, what have I got here? CPU. What on a device? I don't want to just have a 90% and above is a bad number, because that's not always a bad number. It could be standard behavior. I might be doing batch processing. It may be a certain part of the day it's doing things which inherently use a lot more compute. Well, there are other ways, there are forecasting ways that I can optimize my compute resource. But when I have anomalous behavior, when I have behavior that's different from my ordinary seasonality, i.e. Yes, between 1 o'clock and 20 past 1 every day, batch processing runs and we have a high workload. But if I've got behavior that changes and I've got high workload at other times, that's something that maybe somebody wants to look at. In this example, we can see we've got a normal operating range, but the AI is going to surface the fact that during this time period, we've got some anomalous information. And it's not necessary that it's gone over 90%. So this really helps with, say, things like the alert noise, and it absolutely helps with the forecasting, because it's not just about good numbers and bad numbers. It's about true behavior of resource consumption. And are we in the realms of demo gods? Oh, good, right. So what I'm going to just do here is show you an example. Now, I'm not allowed to show you the SolarWinds versions of this coming along. There are things coming along from SolarWinds that are very similar to what we have here. But at Prosperon for a while now, we've had a number of kind of this AI capabilities. And what you can see on the screen here is that we've added a button. Now, this example here is just one example, and it's just using a preset of compute resource consumption. But we can do this for any data set that's being collected by the platform. It could be any information that we are receiving. And so we've just created this function that says, right, analyze with AI. So it essentially grabs a whole bunch of data for the object, in this case, our firewall, and it sends all of that off to AI to give us a performance summary. Give me that interpretation. I don't need to come in here and look at these charts and come across to these values. So if I come into this kind of trends view that we've got, I don't need to look at this, and I don't need to do that interpretation. This is it. This is AI telling me. So in this case, you can see that it's giving us some understanding about this. We can see there's consistent memory usage that's high. What its average is, the fact that on these devices it's known to be an issue. Now, this is using a process automation platform. We use NAN, and so this is our workflow. When it's called via a webhook, we've pressed that button, grab a load of data, format it in a way which we can then pass across to an AI platform. We're using Google. It could be any AI platform, OpenAI, Claude, etc. And then we can then retrieve the results, format it again to allow us to display that information in this screen. So this is an example of, again, using AI. This is a interactive approach. With this is natural. This is just inherently part of the assessment. With the health scoring, with the other AI capabilities that we have in the observability platform and SaaS, again, this is all just natural. We've got, as we've seen, this ability again to trigger. So this is very similar, as I say, to what we've created for the self-hosted. And as more and more functionality comes online, more and more capability is going to be provided within both solutions. So if I just go back to the presentation slide here, just move on to this next slide. So this is something that I use on a regular basis. You may have seen, if you've seen any of our alerting webinars before, this is something I refer to on a regular basis, because this is key. This is that window of response time. The mean time to resolution is our standard industry convention for this. So how long does it take to detect? Well, that's what your monitoring solution is there to do for you. Detects issues, notifies you, so you can then respond. So this response time frame is clearly that moment that the SolarWinds platform, whichever one you have or looking at, or indeed any other solutions, how long does it take you to identify that there's an issue? Yep, a system's gone down, a service is not responding, a web page is slow, a database query is slow, whatever. Then for you to be notified, i.e. whether you're responding that in your ticketing queue, whether you're picking up a Teams message, whether you're getting an email. No, don't use emails for your alerting, please. Again, go and have a look at our history of alerting webinars. And then the time for you to then take that response to go and investigate what's going on. So these are the key windows for any of us as SREs and monitoring engineers, because we want to make sure that we've got that window down as short as possible. Because the sooner we get that information coming to our eyes, then we're able to go off and do a fix. And observability is here to help shrink all of this down. Yeah, you'll see that things like the test doesn't really change in terms of time frame, but absolutely it does when we start looking at the ability to reduce this time as much as possible. So what's next? What's coming? What have we got? Well, greater coverage, more and more data metrics being used in our observability analysis, the ability for you to map your business KPIs to them, so that understanding about AI telling you when you've got problems can be more accurate and more appropriate. The fact that AI is being taught and trained on your seasonality. You may have seasonality that has a cadence of once a day, once a week, once a month. You may be an organization where Christmas sales are your busiest time of year and the one that you make the most revenue on. And so understanding that seasonality, so it can be included in the analysis, so you're not being told of issues that are not relevant for you because of that seasonality. We've just seen some aspects around that agentic analysis, that ability for us to press buttons or interact with AI to bring back information and knowledge. Knowledge is that key output of observability.
So the agentic, sorry, Mark, is it fair to kind of summarize it as almost kind of like a ChatGPT model in terms of it's that you've got that set of data and you're also able to ask it kind of questions, and it's that kind of thing of going back and forth to kind of really ascertain what that issue may be.
Yes. Yeah, so think about it as the fact that if you're just on a flat OpenAI chat prompt and you're saying, please analyze this. Well, the please analyze this is you not having to upload a data file or give it information. It will just automatically grab that from the SolarWinds data that's already been collected. So your prompt, in effect, is please analyze this data in line with compute resource consumption or the difference between when I've got 100 users on my web application versus 10,000. Give me an understanding about how that impacts my infrastructure. Can my load balancer cope? Is it balancing load correctly? Are my resources that I've got in my server farm keeping up with that 10,000 volume? So all of those kind of things, and using that interactively when there's an issue. Can you give me a solution as to why this dynamic routing change has occurred and how I can go and fix it?
So it's almost like
when
a
config
bespoke,
change
unique
happens. Oh, go on.
So it's almost like a bespoke, unique thing to each kind of individual user, if you like.
It's my AI helper. It's my AI SME. It's my research buddy.
So it's accessible
but it's
to
able
kind of
to be
all the different
using
people who
that.
may be using that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be a real key shift. Let's say that empowerment and that accessibility that we talked about at the beginning. These are going to be real key improvements to allow us to not have to throw a hot potato around a virtual IT team. I've got the ability to talk to this agentic capability and get answers. Analyze this for me. Tell me what it means.
Okay.
When I see the root cause, how can I fix this? What's a common resolution pathway to this? Really, really powerful stuff. And then clearly that's going to lead into things like hyper automation. So being able to autonomously go and do these things. I don't even as a human necessarily potentially need to get involved in some things. The fact that I can use this to then go, okay, yeah, I've looked at this and let me now go and automatically apply some remediation or integration. I want to use this as a trigger point to automatically exchange data with a third-party system. So let's take an example of that. what was something we were so one of the things we were talking internally the other day in our own platform is taking our change management system, SolarWinds Service Desk or ServiceNow or any CMDB, and saying, okay, a change has been authorized. Let's look and see what that config change that's been approved is. Let's identify when that change gets applied. Maybe it's that routing change to the network. Has it been applied to the device? Yes, it has. Do I have a performance impact? No. Great. I'm going to go back to my ITSM platform and say, this change has been applied. It was applied at this time by this user, and there's no observations that there's been any impact. That alone is huge. That alone, to be able to tie that circle up, is really beneficial. So these are all absolutely in the realms of possibility of what we can achieve when we start bringing these observability frameworks in place, and then we start bringing that data into an automation realm. I'm conscious that I'm running over time, so firstly, apologies for that, and thank you for holding on. I always, when I get onto our webinars, talk more than I should, but hopefully it is of benefit and use, and the fact that a lot of you have stayed would indicate hopefully that's the case. So the last slide that I kind of have here is how do you look at moving to observability? Well, clearly, can you benefit from it? Anything that we talk about in terms of IT, and when we talk to our customers, it's all about what value can you get. So is there a value proposition? If there is, who can use it? Who can benefit? How do you bake that into your organization? You will see that in that second step. How do you determine the value, what the budget is, who the stakeholders, who are going to benefit from this? And a key thing highlighted in bold, get that stakeholder buy-in. Work with your internal team, speak to your application and your development team and your infrastructure and your network teams, your database, your security people, service desk managers. All of these are stakeholders in the organization. You, as a monitoring, as an SRE expert, should be going to those teams and providing a beneficial service that they can consume. So get that buy-in, get that benefit shown to them so you can go and then deliver to that. Plan it clearly. We work again in IT. We know that if we just rock up and start doing the do rather than planning what the do looks like, we've got more success of doing it correctly. If we plan, we implement according to that plan, we adjust it as we move forward. And then the last one there, make sure that everybody that is involved in this has the training to understand how do they use it, how can they benefit from it, what's their day-to-day workflow, update your SOP documentation, and keep all of that up to date and current. Okay, quick one for questions. We'll see how we get on with this, and so I'm happy to kind of keep going a little
questions,
bit.
I think, Mark, in the chat.
Okay. So Alexander, you've asked, can we engage our internal AI or should we use public SolarWinds? It's a good question. So the approach that we took is using a platform such as NAN, because that gives us access to any AI platform. So if you have an existing platform or decision that you're using OpenAI versus Anthropic or whatever it may be, then absolutely on that platform we can use any. And the flexibility that we have is that we can bake our own use cases. So we have a list of like 20 different use cases of how we leverage NAN, and there's more and more that can be achieved. In terms of the AI that SolarWinds provide and can continue to improve and develop, obviously there's going to be elements around that which are defined. Yep. So you are going to be in the SolarWinds platform going to be using their AI because they are paying for it, they're supplying it, and they are coding to that. So as I say, there's different ways of approaching that. Hopefully that's answered your question, Alexander. I don't see any others, so I'll give you a couple of seconds to post any questions in the chat, just in case there is anything else.
You're very welcome, Robert. I think
Yes.
Mark's quite keen to get everything wrapped up, considering you're going on holiday in 2 days, Mark.
I have time. I haven't packed yet. It has been discussed as to why I always leave it at the last minute, but let's ignore that for now.
Because you can just walk around the house as you leave, collecting the stuff you need in a bag. Off you go. There we go.
I'm organised already. I know what I'm taking. I know where it is. The question is it still there? Okay. No one's putting in any further questions there. So Dan, if I'll let you wrap up.
Yeah, of course. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us. It is my kind of the first one that I've perhaps tried to initiate and perhaps try and kind of compel Mark and introduce. So I hope you found it useful. I'll reach out to those of you who are in the meeting just as some contact details if you don't have them already. But also you can find Mark and I on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. But thank you again. I appreciate it. It's a Thursday. It's August, and your time is very precious. So thank you for choosing it to spend it with us. Yeah. So thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend.
Lovely. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Take care. Thanks again.